The small grocery store on the corner of 5th Street was quiet that evening. Rain tapped softly on the glass windows. Behind the counter stood Maria, a chubby young woman with kind eyes and a tired smile. She had worked at this store for 3 years. Nobody knew much about her past. She kept to herself, always polite, always calm. That night, everything was normal, until a black car stopped outside the store. The door opened with a loud bell sound. A tall man walked in. He wore a black coat and expensive shoes. His face was sharp, his eyes cold. Everyone in the store turned to look at him. They all knew who he was. Vincent Moretti. The name alone made people nervous. He was not just a rich businessman. He was the head of one of the most feared mafia families in the city. People whispered his name in fear. Nobody dared to look him in the eye. Vincent walked slowly through the aisles, his shoes echoing on the floor. He picked up a bottle of wine and walked toward the counter. Maria stood there, ready to help him like she helped every other customer. "Good evening, sir," she said with a small smile. "Will that be all?" Vincent looked at her for a moment. He noticed her simple clothes, her round face, her tired eyes. He smirked. Then, in a low voice, he said something in Italian. "Guarda questa grassona. Pensa di potermi servire. Look at this fat girl. She thinks she can serve me." A few people near the counter chuckled nervously, not understanding the words but sensing the insult from his tone. Maria's face stayed calm. She did not react. She simply scanned the wine bottle and said, "That will be $12, sir." Vincent leaned closer, his smirk growing wider. He said another sentence in Italian, this time slower, clearly enjoying himself. "Forse dovrebbe mangiare meno e lavorare di più." Maybe she should eat less and work more. The store went silent. A few customers looked away, embarrassed for her. The cashier next to Maria, a young boy named Tommy, looked shocked. He didn't understand Italian, but he could see the disrespect in Vincent's eyes. Maria placed the wine bottle in a paper bag. Her hands were steady. Her face showed nothing. Then, in perfect Italian, she replied, "Forse dovrebbe imparare che non tutti quelli che sembrano deboli lo sono davvero." Maybe you should learn that not everyone who looks weak really is. The store fell into complete silence. Vincent's smirk disappeared instantly. His eyes narrowed. He had not expected this. Nobody talked back to him, especially not a simple store cashier. And she had understood every word he said, every insult, every mocking comment. For the first time in years, Vincent Moretti felt something he rarely felt, surprise. "You speak Italian," he said slowly, switching to English now, his voice low and dangerous. "I understand many languages," Maria replied calmly, still not looking away from him. "It helps in this job." Vincent studied her face carefully now. Something about her calmness bothered him. People feared him. People shook when he walked into a room. But this woman, this chubby cashier as he had mocked her, stood there like she had nothing to fear at all. That was strange. Very strange. He placed a $100 bill on the counter. "Keep the change," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. Maria pushed the bill back gently. $12 is the price, sir. I don't need charity." The tension in the air grew thicker. Tommy, standing nearby, could feel his hands shaking. He had heard stories about Vincent Moretti, stories about people who disappeared after crossing him. And here was Maria, calmly refusing his money, looking him straight in the eyes without any fear. Vincent picked up his wine bottle slowly. He looked at Maria one more time, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "What is your name?" he asked. "Maria," she answered simply. "Just Maria." "For now," she said, a small, mysterious smile appearing on her lips. Vincent's jaw tightened. There was something about the way she said those words. "For now." Like she was hiding something bigger. Something he did not know. He walked toward the door, but before leaving, he turned back one final time. "I will see you again, Maria," he said, his voice carrying both a warning and a strange curiosity. "I'm sure you will," she replied, already helping the next customer like nothing had happened. The bell rang again as Vincent walked out into the rain. His black car drove away into the dark streets of the city. Inside the store, Tommy finally released the breath he had been holding. "Maria, how did you do that? Do you know who that was?" Maria simply smiled and continued organizing the counter. "I know exactly who he is," she said softly. "The question is, does he know who I am?" Outside, in his car, Vincent stared out the window, deep in thought. Something about that woman did not add up. Her calmness. Her perfect Italian. The way she looked at him without fear. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "I need you to find out everything about a cashier named Maria," he said. Everything. Little did he know, he had just opened a door that would soon shake his entire empire to its core. 3 days passed since Vincent Moretti walked into that small grocery store. But he could not stop thinking about Maria. Her calm eyes. Her perfect Italian. The way she had refused his money like it meant nothing to her. Vincent sat in his large office on the top floor of Moretti Tower. The city lights glowed outside his window. His most trusted man, Salvatore, stood in front of his desk, holding a thin folder. "Boss, we checked everything about her," Salvatore said. "Maria Conti, 28 years old. Works at that grocery store for 3 years. No family listed. No criminal record. Nothing unusual." Vincent leaned back in his chair, unsatisfied. Nothing unusual? A simple cashier who speaks perfect Italian and does not fear a mafia boss? That is unusual, Salvatore. Salvatore shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe she is just brave, boss." Vincent shook his head slowly. "No. Brave people show fear but push through it anyway. She showed no fear at all. That means one of two things. Either she is very foolish, or she knows something that makes her feel safe." He tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking hard. Something about Maria felt wrong, like a puzzle piece that did not fit anywhere in his world. And Vincent Moretti hated puzzles he could not solve. Meanwhile, across the city, Maria sat alone in her small apartment. The lights were dim. On her table sat an old photograph, slightly torn at the edges. It showed a young girl standing next to a tall man in a formal suit, both smiling in front of a large villa in Sicily. Maria picked up the photograph gently, her fingers tracing the man's face. "Papa," she whispered softly. Her mind drifted back to memories she had buried deep inside for years. Flashback, 15 years ago, Sicily, Italy. A young Maria, only 13 years old, ran through the halls of a grand villa, laughing as she chased her father. He was a powerful man then, respected and feared in equal measure. He was not Vincent Moretti's family, but a rival family, one that Vincent's father had destroyed long ago. "Papa, teach me more Italian phrases," young Maria had begged, tugging at his sleeve. Her father, a wise and gentle man despite his dangerous world, smiled and knelt beside her. "Language is power, Maria. If you understand people's words, you understand their hearts. And sometimes, their secrets too." That night, everything changed. Gunshots echoed through the villa. Screams. Fire. Young Maria was hidden inside a secret closet by her mother, tears streaming down both their faces. "Stay quiet, my love. No matter what you hear," her mother whispered before disappearing into the chaos. Maria never saw her parents again. She was found 3 days later by a kind old woman who worked as a maid in the villa. The woman took Maria in, changed her name, and helped her escape to America, far away from the war between mafia families that had destroyed her childhood. End of flashback. Maria wiped a single tear from her cheek and placed the photograph back in its hidden drawer. She had spent years hiding, working simple jobs, keeping her identity secret. But she never forgot. She never forgave. And she never stopped watching. Because the man responsible for destroying her family, the man who gave the order that night, was Vincent Moretti's own father, Alessandro Moretti. And now, his son stood exactly where his father once stood, powerful, feared, and completely unaware that fate had brought him face to face with the daughter of the family he helped destroy. The next evening, Vincent could not resist. He found himself walking back into the same small grocery store, telling himself it was simply checking on a mystery, nothing more. The bell rang as he entered. Maria was there again, working calmly as always. "Back so soon?" she asked, not even looking up from her work. Vincent walked closer to the counter, studying her face carefully. "I want to understand something, Maria. Most people fear me. You do not. Why?" Maria finally looked up, her eyes meeting his directly. "Maybe I have already lost everything I was ever afraid of losing." Her words hit him harder than she probably intended. There was pain hidden behind those words. Old pain, deep pain. "What does that mean?" Vincent asked, his voice softer than before. Maria smiled sadly. "It means, Mr. Moretti, that fear only controls people who still have something left to protect." Vincent stared at her, more confused and intrigued than ever. This woman was not just another cashier. She carried secrets, secrets that felt somehow connected to darkness in his own world. "I will find out who you really are, Maria," he said quietly. "Maybe," Maria replied, turning back to her work. "But by the time you do, it might already be too late for you." Vincent left the store that night with more questions than answers, unaware that the woman he mocked just days ago held the key to unlocking the darkest secret of his entire family, a secret buried 15 years ago in the ashes of a burning villa in Sicily. The countdown had already begun. A week passed, and Vincent Moretti could not focus on anything else. His business meetings felt empty. His usual confidence was replaced by something he was not used to feeling: doubt. Salvatore noticed the change in his boss immediately. "Boss, you have been distracted lately. Is this still about the cashier?" Vincent did not answer right away. He walked to the window of his office, looking down at the busy streets of the city. "There is something about her, Salvatore. Something old. Something that feels familiar." "Familiar how?" Salvatore asked, confused. "I don't know yet," Vincent admitted. "But I intend to find out." He turned around sharply. "Dig deeper. I want to know everything about Maria Conti, where she came from before she started working at that store. Birth records. School records. Everything." Salvatore nodded and left the office quickly, sensing the urgency in his boss's voice. Later that night, Salvatore's investigation hit a strange wall. He sat in a dark room filled with old files and a glowing computer screen, frustration building on his face. "There's nothing here," he muttered to himself. "No school records before she turned 16. No birth certificate under this name. It's like she appeared out of nowhere." He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. Something was definitely hidden. And whatever it was, someone had worked very hard to bury it. He picked up his phone and called an old contact, a retired detective who used to work cases involving mafia families years ago. "I need information," Salvatore said, "about a family destroyed 15 years ago. Sicily. A rival family to the Morettis." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Why are you asking about that now?" The old detective's voice came through, tense and cautious. "Just answer the question," Salvatore said firmly. The detective sighed heavily. There were rumors that a young girl survived that night, the daughter of the family boss. Nobody ever found her. Some said she died in the fire. Others said she escaped. Salvatore's eyes widened slightly. "Escaped to where?" "Nobody knows," the detective said. "But if she is still alive, she would be around Maria's age now." Salvatore slowly put down the phone, his mind racing. Could it really be true? Could the chubby cashier his boss mocked in Italian actually be the missing daughter of a family the Morettis had destroyed? He needed to tell Vincent immediately. But something told him this news would change everything. The next morning, Vincent stormed into the grocery store, his expression darker than usual. Maria was behind the counter, calmly restocking shelves. "We need to talk," Vincent said sharply. "Now." Maria turned to face him, unbothered by his tone. "About what, exactly?" "About who you really are," Vincent said, stepping closer. 15 years ago, in Sicily, a family was destroyed. A young girl disappeared that night. Nobody ever found her body. Maria's expression did not change, but her eyes grew colder, sharper. "Is that so? Was that you, Maria?" Vincent asked directly, his voice low. "Are you the daughter of that family?" For a long moment, silence filled the store. Maria placed the box she was holding down on the counter slowly, deliberately. "And if I was," she finally asked, "what would you do about it, Vincent?" Her use of his first name, without any title, without any fear, sent a chill down his spine. "I would want to know why you never said anything," Vincent said. "Why you stayed silent all this time, working in this small store, pretending to be nobody." Maria laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "Pretending to be nobody? No, Vincent. I was watching, learning, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Maria leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made even a mafia boss feel uneasy. "Waiting for the right moment," she said quietly, "to make the Moretti family pay for what they did to mine." Vincent's jaw tightened. "My father made those decisions, not me. I was young. I had nothing to do with what happened that night." "Maybe not directly," Maria said, her voice steady and cold. "But you have spent your entire life enjoying the power, the money, the fear people have for your name, power built on the blood of families like mine." Vincent took a step back, feeling something shift in the room, like the ground beneath him was no longer solid. "What do you want, Maria?" he asked finally. "Revenge." Maria's lips curled into a small, mysterious smile. "Revenge is such a simple word for something so complicated, Vincent. What I want is for you to understand exactly how it feels to lose everything in one single night." She reached under the counter and pulled out an old photograph, sliding it across the counter toward him. Vincent looked down at it, his blood running cold. It was a picture of his own father, Alessandro Moretti, standing outside a burning villa 15 years ago, watching the flames with no emotion on his face at all. "You have proof," Vincent whispered, stunned. "Real proof of what my father did." Maria's smile widened slightly. "Oh, Vincent, this is just the beginning of what I know about your family's darkest secrets." Vincent stared at her, realizing for the first time that the woman he once mocked in a grocery store held more power over him than anyone else in his entire empire. And she was only just getting started. Clapperboard Part 4, 1200 words. Vincent Moretti did not sleep that night. He sat alone in his dark office, the old photograph of his father standing in front of the burning villa placed on his desk. He stared at it for hours, his mind replaying Maria's words again and again. "This is just the beginning of what I know about your family's darkest secrets." What else did she know? How much proof did she have? And most importantly, what did she plan to do with it? Salvatore knocked on the door softly before entering. He could see the tension on his boss's face immediately. "Boss, you look like you haven't slept," Salvatore said carefully. "I haven't," Vincent admitted, his voice tired. "Sit down, Salvatore. There's something I need to tell you." Salvatore sat across from him, waiting. Vincent slid the photograph across the desk. "Maria showed me this. It's my father, standing outside the Conti family villa the night it burned down. She says she has more." Salvatore's face turned pale as he studied the photograph. "Boss, if she has real evidence connecting your father to that massacre, and if it ever reaches the wrong hands—" "I know," Vincent snapped, cutting him off. "The other families would use it against us. The police could use it to finally build a real case. 15 years of silence, and now it could all come apart because of one cashier. What do you want to do?" Salvatore asked quietly. Vincent was silent for a long moment, staring at the photograph. Part of him wanted to make the problem disappear the way his family always did, quickly, quietly, permanently. But something stopped him. Something about Maria's eyes when she spoke to him. There was no fear in them. If anything happened to her, whatever evidence she had would probably surface anyway, likely with instructions already set in motion. "We're not touching her," Vincent said finally. "Not yet. I need to know exactly what she has and who else might know about it." Salvatore looked surprised. "Boss, that's not how we usually handle threats." "She's not just a threat, Salvatore," Vincent said, his voice quieter now. "She's the daughter of a family my father destroyed. She has spent 15 years planning this. If I make one wrong move, I could lose everything. I need to talk to her. Alone." The next evening, Vincent returned to the grocery store one more time. But this time, He waited until closing hour, when the store was empty except for Maria, who was counting the register. She looked up as he entered, unsurprised. "I was wondering when you'd come back. We need to talk." "Really talk," Vincent said. "Not as enemies. Just talk." Maria studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. She locked the front door and gestured toward the small break room in the back of the store. They sat across from each other at a small table, the silence heavy between them. "Tell me everything," Vincent said. "What happened that night? What you know. What you want." Maria took a deep breath, her eyes drifting to somewhere far away, back to that night 15 years ago. "My father, Antonio Conti, was not like the other mafia bosses," she began. "He wanted out. He wanted to build a legal business, leave that dangerous world behind for good. He had been secretly working with the police for almost a year, giving them information about the other families in exchange for protection and a new life for our family." Vincent's eyes widened slightly. "He was an informant?" Maria nodded. "Your father found out. Instead of exposing him publicly, which could have brought unwanted police attention to everyone, Alessandro Moretti decided to handle it the old way. Quiet. Final. He sent men to our villa that night to make sure my father could never testify against anyone." Her voice remained steady, but Vincent could see the pain buried deep beneath her calm exterior. "My mother hid me in a secret closet before the men arrived," Maria continued. "I heard everything. The gunshots. The screaming. The fire. I was only 13 years old." Vincent sat in stunned silence, absorbing every word. "A maid found me 3 days later, hiding in the ruins," Maria said. "She was the only person who knew I survived. She changed my name, helped me leave Sicily, and made sure nobody ever connected me to the Conti family again." "And all these years," Vincent said slowly, "you were planning to expose my father?" Maria shook her head. "Not exactly expose him. Your father died 2 years ago, remember? Natural causes, they said. There is nothing left to expose about a dead man except history." Vincent frowned, confused. "Then what is this really about, Maria?" Maria's eyes finally met his directly. Something sharper flickered behind them. "It's about you, Vincent. About what you choose to do now that you know the truth. Will you continue building your empire on the same foundation of lies and blood your father built? Or will you finally break the cycle?" Vincent leaned back in his chair, the weight of her words pressing down on him harder than any threat ever could. "What proof do you actually have?" he asked quietly. Maria reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn journal. "My mother kept detailed records of everything my father discovered about the Moretti family's operations before that night, records meant for the police. I found this journal hidden inside the maid's old belongings years later. It has names, dates, locations. Enough to bring down half the families in this city, including yours." Vincent stared at the journal like it was a bomb sitting on the table between them. "Why haven't you used it yet?" he asked. "Why wait all these years?" Maria closed the journal slowly. "Because revenge built on more bloodshed only creates more victims like me, Vincent. I wanted to watch. I wanted to understand who you really were before deciding what to do with this information." "And what have you decided?" Vincent asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maria stood up slowly, walking toward the small window of the break room, looking out into the dark street. "I haven't decided yet," she admitted. "But know this, Vincent Moretti, your entire empire is now sitting in my hands. One phone call, one meeting with the right journalist or detective, and everything your family has built could crumble within days." She turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. "The real question now," she said softly, "is what are you willing to do to stop that from happening?" Vincent Moretti, one of the most feared men in the city, suddenly realized he was no longer in control of the situation at all. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Word travels fast in the underworld. It took only 4 days for whispers to start spreading through the city's criminal circles, quiet rumors that something was wrong inside the Moretti family. Nobody knew exactly what. But everyone could sense the shift, like animals sensing a storm before it arrives. Vincent had barely left his office since the night Maria showed him the journal. He kept replaying her words in his mind. Your entire empire is now sitting in my hands. Salvatore entered the office one afternoon, his face tense. Boss, we have a problem. The Rossi family is asking questions. They heard rumors about old secrets connected to your father. I don't know how, but someone is talking. Vincent's head snapped up. Talking? To whom? I don't know yet, Salvatore admitted. But if the Rossis get their hands on real proof about what your father did 15 years ago, they will use it as a reason to move against us. You know how badly they've wanted an excuse to take over our territory. Vincent stood up sharply, anger and fear mixing dangerously inside him. Maria wouldn't go to the Rossis. She said this was between us. Are you certain, boss? Salvatore asked carefully. Maybe she's playing a longer game than we think. Maybe she's using the Rossis to weaken us from the outside while she strikes from the inside. Vincent did not want to believe it, but doubt crept into his mind anyway. He needed to see Maria immediately. That evening, Vincent arrived at Maria's small apartment, something he had never done before. He knocked firmly on the door. Maria opened it, slightly surprised to see him there. Vincent, this is unexpected. We need to talk. Now, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Maria closed the door behind him, sensing the urgency in his voice. What happened? The Rossi family knows something, Vincent said, pacing across her small living room. They're asking questions about my father. About that night in Sicily. Did you talk to them, Maria? Maria's expression hardened. No. I told you, this is between us. I have not spoken to anyone. Then how do they know? Vincent demanded, his voice rising. I don't know, Maria said honestly. But if they know something, it did not come from me. Vincent studied her face carefully, searching for any sign of deception. But all he found was genuine concern, matching his own. If it wasn't you, Vincent said slowly, then who else knows about the journal? Maria's eyes widened slightly as a realization hit her. The maid, she whispered. The woman who saved me, who kept my mother's belongings all these years. She passed away last year. Before she died, she gave some of my mother's old things to her daughter, for safekeeping, in case anything ever happened to me. Her daughter could have the same information, Vincent said, understanding immediately. Or she could have already sold it to someone else. Maria sat down heavily on her couch, her calm composure finally cracking slightly. If Elena has the same proof and she's talking to the Rossi family, this is no longer just about us, Vincent. This is bigger than either of us can control alone. For the first time since they met, Vincent and Maria found themselves on the same side of a problem, both realizing that outside forces now threaten to destroy everything, regardless of their personal history. We need to find Elena before the Rossis use whatever she has against both of us, Vincent said firmly. If this information becomes public in the wrong way, it won't just destroy my family. Every family connected to that night could come after you too, Maria, to keep their own secrets buried. Maria looked up at him, surprised by the genuine concern in his voice. Why would you care what happens to me? Vincent paused, searching for the right words. Because for the first time in my life, I'm starting to see things clearly. My father built our empire on lies and blood. You lost everything because of decisions I never made but still benefit from every single day. Maybe fixing this isn't just about protecting my family's secrets anymore. Maybe it's about finally doing the right thing. Maria studied him closely, trying to determine if his words were genuine or simply a strategic move to protect his own interests. But something in his eyes told her this was different. This felt real. All right, she said finally. We find Elena together. But Vincent, if I discover you're using me, or if you try to silence her permanently instead of handling this the right way, I will make sure every secret I have becomes public immediately. Do you understand? I understand, Vincent said seriously. No more violence. No more covering up the truth with blood. We find Elena, and we figure out the right way to handle this, together. That night, Salvatore managed to track down Elena's address through old employment records connected to her late mother. She lived on the other side of the city, in a small house with a modest garden. Vincent and Maria arrived together, an unusual sight that would have shocked anyone who knew their history just weeks earlier. Elena, a woman in her early 30s, opened the door cautiously, clearly nervous at the sight of Vincent Moretti standing on her porch. "Please," Maria said gently before Elena could close the door in fear. "We're not here to hurt you. I'm Maria, Antonio Conti's daughter. Your mother saved my life 15 years ago." Elena's eyes widened with recognition and surprise. "Maria, I always wondered if you were really alive. My mother spoke about you sometimes, but she never told me your new name." "Did the Rossi family contact you?" Vincent asked directly, though his tone was gentler than his usual commanding voice. Elena hesitated, glancing nervously between them. "Yes. A man came a week ago, asking questions about old family secrets, saying he'd pay generously for anything useful about the Moretti family. I didn't tell him anything yet, but he said he'd be back." Maria and Vincent exchanged a tense look. "Elena," Maria said carefully, "we need your help. This situation has become far more dangerous than any of us expected. If the wrong information falls into the wrong hands, more innocent people could get hurt, just like what happened to my family." Elena nodded slowly, fear and determination mixing in her expression. "What do you need me to do?" As the three of them sat down together to figure out their next move, none of them realized that outside, hidden in the shadows across the street, someone was watching everything unfold. Someone working directly for the Rossi family, already reporting every detail back to their boss. The storm that Vincent had sensed brewing was no longer approaching. It had already arrived. The man in the shadows watched the small house for another hour before slipping away into the night. He climbed into a black sedan parked 2 blocks away and made a call. "Boss, it's confirmed. Vincent Moretti himself is here, meeting with Antonio Conti's daughter and the maid's child. They're working together." On the other end of the line, Don Rossi smiled coldly. "Working together? How touching. This changes nothing. If anything, it makes my job easier. Bring me everything you can find. Tomorrow, we move." Inside Elena's small house, Vincent, Maria, and Elena spent hours going through old boxes filled with Elena's mother's belongings. Papers, photographs, old recordings, pieces of a puzzle that had been sitting quietly for 15 years. "Here," Elena said, pulling out a small handwritten letter. "My mother wrote this before she passed. She said if anyone ever came asking questions about the Conti family, I should give this to Maria, and only Maria." Maria took the letter with trembling hands and read it slowly. Her eyes filled with tears as she reached the final lines. "What does it say?" Vincent asked gently. Maria looked up, her expression a mixture of grief and relief. "She wrote that she never told anyone else about me. Not even Elena knew my real identity until tonight. She protected my secret until the day she died." "Then how did the Rossi family find out anything at all?" Vincent asked, confused. Elena spoke up nervously. "The man who came to see me, he didn't ask about Maria specifically. He asked general questions about old Moretti family secrets. I think he's been searching multiple old contacts, hoping to find something, anything, to use against your family, Vincent. I don't think he knows about the journal specifically." Relief washed over Maria's face, but Vincent still looked troubled. "That doesn't matter," he said. "If Don Rossi is desperate enough to dig up 15-year-old rumors, he will eventually find real proof, whether from us or somewhere else. We need to control this situation before he does." The next morning, Vincent called an emergency meeting with the heads of the smaller families still loyal to the Morettis. Maria insisted on coming with him, much to Salvatore's nervous objection. "Boss, bringing her into a room full of dangerous men is risky," Salvatore warned. "Especially if word gets out about who she really is." "I know the risk," Vincent said firmly. "But hiding the truth is exactly what got us into this mess. It's time to face it head-on." Inside the meeting room, tension filled the air as Vincent stood at the head of the table, Maria standing calmly beside him. 15 years ago, my father made a decision that destroyed an innocent family," Vincent announced to the room, his voice steady despite the shocked murmurs spreading around the table. "He silenced a man who wanted to leave this life behind, a man who only wanted safety for his family. That man's daughter survived. She stands here today, not as an enemy, but as someone who deserves the truth and justice." The room fell into stunned silence. Several men exchanged nervous glances, clearly uncomfortable with such an open admission of past crimes. "Why are you telling us this now?" one of the older men asked cautiously. "Because secrets built on blood eventually destroy everyone who tries to protect them," Vincent said. "The Rossi family already suspects something. If we continue hiding the truth, they will use it as a weapon against all of us. But if we control the story ourselves, expose the corruption within our own family honestly, we remove their only advantage." Maria stepped forward slightly. "I am not here for revenge against innocent people," she said clearly. "I am here because silence protects nobody except those who commit crimes. Vincent has agreed to help me find real justice, not through more violence, but through truth." 3 days later, information about Alessandro Moretti's involvement in the Conti family massacre was carefully leaked to a trusted journalist, along with proof that Vincent himself was cooperating with authorities to right his father's wrongs. The story shook the city's underworld, but it also positioned Vincent as someone breaking away from his father's violent legacy rather than someone hiding it. Don Rossi's plan to use the secret as blackmail material completely collapsed. With the truth already public and framed as an act of redemption rather than exposure, he had lost his most powerful weapon entirely. Furious, Don Rossi tried one final desperate move, sending men to intimidate Maria directly. But Vincent, anticipating exactly this possibility, had already arranged protection for her, alongside enough evidence handed to local authorities to implicate Rossi in several past crimes of his own. Within weeks, Don Rossi found himself facing serious legal trouble, his own hidden secrets suddenly becoming public knowledge, a taste of the very tactic he had tried to use against the Morettis. Months passed. The city's criminal landscape shifted slowly but noticeably. Vincent used his position to distance the family from its darkest practices, focusing instead on legitimate businesses, much like Antonio Conti had once hoped to do himself. Maria returned to her quiet life, though everything about it had changed. She no longer worked behind the counter of the small grocery store. Instead, she worked alongside a small legal foundation, helping other families who had lost loved ones to organized crime find justice and closure. One evening, Vincent visited her new office, watching her help an elderly woman file paperwork with the same calm kindness she once showed customers at the grocery store. After the woman left, Maria turned to him with a small smile. "Checking up on me, Mr. Moretti?" "Something like that," Vincent said, a rare genuine smile appearing on his face. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" Maria asked, surprised. "For forcing me to finally see the truth about my family," Vincent said. "For giving me the chance to change something, instead of simply continuing to hide behind it." Maria studied him for a long moment, the weight of 15 years finally beginning to lift from her shoulders. "Maybe some good really can come from the worst moments in our lives, Vincent." Vincent nodded slowly, looking around her small but meaningful office. "Maybe it can, Maria. Maybe it finally has." Outside, the city moved on, unaware of how close it had come to a war that never happened, all because a mafia boss once mocked a chubby cashier in a language he never expected her to understand. Sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest secrets, and the courage to finally set them free.